This is probably one of the, if not the biggest fight you can make in women's boxing today. So, and they're saying it might be at Madison Square Garden. So, I'm super excited to see this one. It's not like box rec official yet, but Eddie Hearns said essentially it's a done deal. At any rate, we have Taylor, who is 20-0 with 6 knockouts. She is 35 years old. She last beat Firuza Sharapova last month, and Amanda Serrano, who fought on that Jake Paul undercard. She is 42 1-1 with 30 knockouts. She's 33 years old, and she last beat Miriam Gutierrez on that card. They're saying it will be on April 30th, and one of the things that makes this interesting is the fact that Serrano will be moving up from featherweight to lightweight to fight her. Now, if they were already fighting at the same weight class, it'd be one thing, but I'm not sure how Serrano's power is going to carry, especially against a fighter like Katie Taylor, who is very, very technically sound. They both are very solid fighters, very technically sound, but to me, Serrano has a little bit more dog in her. Like, if you don't belong in that ring, she's gonna let you know with her fists. And so this one is very close to what I think is a 50-50 fight. And without the technical, since we're doing a prediction, without the technical analysis, this is one that I'm just gonna go with my gut. And if I have to choose one, I think that Amanda Serrano is gonna win this by decision.
This fight right here, man, you know, this is a doozy right here. This is what it's all about. And this fight definitely needs to be made. You got two of the top pound for pound fighters, top 5 pound for pound fighters in women's boxing. I don't know if that's ever happened, where you have fighters that high facing each other. Could have been. I'm not sure, not familiar with like the history like that to know whether or not that's the case. But this definitely would be one where you got maybe even a top 3. So, like you say, Katie Taylor, she goes by KT, the Brave Bomber. They also call her simply the best. And Amanda Serrano, her alias is the Real Deal. So you got a lot of dynamics going on here. You got the Southpaw and Serrano. You got the Orthodox fighter in Katie Taylor. You got Puerto Rico versus Ireland, that dynamic going on. Now, in their last fights, I thought that Serrano, she did a really good job of taking out Gutierrez, even though that was a 10-round unanimous decision. And that fight was important because Miriam Gutierrez also has fought Katie Taylor, but both of them beat Gutierrez, and they just did them the way that they customarily fights, so they took 2 different approaches, but the end result was a wide decision victory for both fighters. To me, Taylor, she's been looking lately more vulnerable than she's had previously. She's one of the most decorated female amateurs, so she has that pedigree going for her, whereas Serrano, she only had 9 or 10 amateur fights. She was 9-1 in the amateur. So you got to give Taylor a check mark there for that amateur pedigree. Also, looking at their careers, Serrano has a lot more fights, because she turned pro earlier, but she was kind of learning on the job. And if you look at her box rec, she has a loss against a fighter named Frida Wahlberg in 2012. Like I say, learning on the job. And then she also has a draw against Ella Nunez. Frida Wahlberg got knocked out and concussed in her next fight out. And so she no longer fights. Like, that was a devastating KO. But it was a close fight. Both of the fights that she had, that was a loss and a draw, they were close. But again, she was, learning her craft. Serrano, in the ring, she has that heat-seeking power. She has devastating punching power. I think even though she'll be coming up in weight, that she'll have the advantages in strength. She's a very strong fighter. I think she'll have advantages when it comes to stamina. The footwork is good. I don't think that she'll have an advantage there, but she has excellent footwork. Now, Katie Taylor, on the other hand, what she's going to do is she's going to bring that fast-paced, aggressive style, speed, combinations. She's faster, I think, slightly. And, she uses angles. She's kind of like, sometimes she can give you that Lomachenko type look. And then she's also very accurate. I would put a check mark as far as accuracy. I think she's more accurate than Serrano. And as I mentioned, the speed, as they say, she's faster than a speeding bullet. But again, she's slowing down a little bit. I think what slowed her down is the fact that she had 2 fights against a lady named Parsoons. Parsoons is a top 10 pound for pound fighter as well. But Parsoons is 5'9". But Parsoons is going to pressure. She's long. First fight, I don't know how Parsoons didn't win that first fight. Parsoons was landing everything in the book. Second fight, what Taylor found out was that if I'm going to fight somebody who's this aggressive, who shoots these many shots, who's this powerful, I better learn how to move my head. And so she did that in the second fight. I thought the second fight could have went either way, but they gave the nod to Taylor. So she has 2 wins over Parsoons. But man, brutal fight. Those fights, those are the type of fights that take years off your career. And I think that that's what's contributing to her slowing down. She also has a victory over Jessica McCaskill, who's now, I want to say she's the undisputed welterweight champ. So that's a huge check off on her resume. So when it comes to resume, she has that on lock. Like she has those 2 wins, or those 3 wins, if you factor in that she beat Parsoons twice or given a nod twice. But just being in that type of fight only helps you when you're fighting against another fighter who hasn't fought under those circumstances. So you got to give her, the nod there. At this stage, I think earlier, I don't think this was a 50-50 fight. I would have leaned towards Katie Taylor, maybe 60-40. But right now, it's a 50-50 fight. Some things that are going in her favor, like the experience part of it, but at the same time, she's not as fast as she was before. And then also her stamina. Like I've been seeing her look a little bit more, she huffs and puffs a little bit more in the fights. And like I said, the 2 advantages that Serrano's going to have is going to be maybe that strength and that power. And then Taylor, she's going to have the superior technical skills. And then she has fought better opposition. So those are the things that we're going to be looking at going into this fight. Now, here's the deal. If Serrano can pressure like Parsoons, with her power, she could be victorious by stoppage, or she can win a decision that way. Also, keep in mind they're fighting in New York. So that's going to play a factor in possibly how the outcome of this fight. But the Irish, they're going to bring a whole bunch of both ladies. They deserve a huge payday because Serrano, she's been looking to fight MMA, just like Clarissa Shields and things like that. Because if you look at both fighters, their net worths, they definitely deserve more money than they've been getting. And these fighters have been dedicating themselves to the sports. If you look also deeper into their lives, their personal lives, neither fighter says that they're in a relationship with any other person because they're dedicating themselves to the sports. And heck, Serrano, she doesn't even have a cell phone because she don't want to get distracted from her ultimate goals that she have, in boxing. But all in all, this is going to be great for women's boxing, and I look forward to this event.
Yeah, you both gave some phenomenal predictions and breakdowns, and I agree with just about everything that you guys covered. I think this is going to be a very entertaining fight, and like you said, Will, I could see this actually ending up being a rematch. It is close to a 50-50 fight, and I think that's more so due to, Taylor slowing down a little bit. But when I look at them, I look at how their style is going to play out. This is a traditional, the boxer versus the swarmer. This is like the boxer with the amateur pedigree, like a Sugar Leonard, a Floyd Mayweather, versus, the boxer, the swarmer that has to, the boxer puncher that had to tough their way up. The Armando Serrano is like the Roberto Duran, the Manny Pacquiao, and didn't have a extensive amateur career, but made up for it by taking more fights than usual. Because I think she has twice as many professional fights as Katie Taylor. And also Serrano, I did have concerns about whether her power carry up, but after I saw the last fight, Serrano's last fight against Gutierrez, I thought Serrano handled it well. And plus Serrano has fought at, I think she fought as high as light welterweight, and I believe that was maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. So Serrano, sometimes if Serrano wins this fight, then I think it'll put her to a legendary status, because we're talking about a fighter who's fought as light as flyweight or super flyweight up to light welterweight today. So and she's been fighting at, I think she fought at super flyweight about 3 years ago. So she's fluctuating between these weight classes so fast, and she's just an all-around fighter, very tough, very dedicated. Like you said, Will, I did remember reading that article where she said she's not in a relationship and she doesn't have a cell phone because she doesn't want to get distracted. And that's, I imagine if more fighters were that dedicated, where they wouldn't allow those type of, outside distractions for them, like where would they be? How good would they be? Would they accomplish? But when I look at how she matches up, how Serrano matches up with Katie Taylor, I think Taylor is a little bit more faster with her punches, and I think she throws shorter punches. So I think she could catch Serrano in those exchanges. But I think those exchanges will be key. If Serrano is able to pressure Taylor and make Taylor overthink, I think Taylor will be in a real fight, and I think Serrano has a good chance to win this fight. But on the other hand, I do think if Katie Taylor, because she does have power herself, just not Serrano type power, I don't think. But if Taylor is able to back up Serrano, I don't think Serrano can fight backing up. But I think Katie Taylor can fight backing up. She can move. She moves backwards. She has good lateral movement. She can move around the ring. I've seen Serrano pressure opponents, but I haven't seen her, take a step backwards and fight off the back foot. And also, even in her last fight with Gutierrez, I remember Gutierrez turning southpaw, even in spots where I thought Serrano had a good shot of stopping her. Gutierrez would turn southpaw and catch Serrano with these, these counter punches. And even though Taylor isn't a southpaw, I think Taylor has the IQ necessary from her amateur experience to try to catch Serrano with some counters. And I think that would be key, because she's going to have to give Serrano something to think about to keep Serrano off of her. So this is a hard fight to predict, because I can see a case of both winning. But if I had if you ask me who I'm going to put my money on, I would put my money on Katie Taylor winning this fight by decision. But at the same time, I won't be surprised if Serrano eked this one out or even stop Taylor, because Serrano is like this whirlwind, and if she can pressure Taylor enough where Taylor doesn't get to breathe, I can see her winning this fight. But for all intents and purposes, I predict that Katie Taylor will win this fight by close decision.
I'll say this, man, this is a very difficult fight to predict. What really gives me the impression that Serrano can get it is if you look at those Parsons fights, because Taylor didn't win that first fight. Like, I don't care what anybody say. And it's two things about those fights. One, she took so much punishment that she hasn't looked the same. Like, if you look at earlier in her career, like the movements that she had, that speed, she was just too much for most ladies. I think when I say all ladies, so that's why she was up there as far as like the number one fighter. It was like undeniable. But after those Parsons fights, I don't think it's the fact that she like the invincibility was gone. It was more so it was something taken out of her. And so that's what I'm looking at. But also, this last fight, the fighter that she was facing was pressuring her. That fight could have went either way. That was a close fight. And that's the thing, like now when people pressure, when ladies pressure Katie, she's not like just letting them have it like she would have previously. So that leads me to believe, because the fighter that she was facing last is nowhere near the level of Serrano. But here's the thing. Serrano doesn't necessarily fight like that. Like, she's gonna come in with her shots, but it's just not nonstop. Like, those girls are nonstop. Like Parsons, as soon as that bell rings, she's on you. And only way that you're going to deter Parsons, you have to hurt her. And if you don't, then she's gonna just be on you all day. And that's what she was doing to Katie. Not only was she just on her, she couldn't miss. So That's the thing. The amount of pressure that Serrano's gonna put on Taylor, will it be enough? Because those 2 rounds are so quick that you can just dodge somebody for a little bit and then put your offense together, and then the round is over with. So that's the thing. That's the reason why this fight can be really close. And I think that somebody as smart as Katie Taylor, she has that Usyk in her, where she's going to do what she needs to do to win. So that's the reason why I'm leaning towards her.
All right, so tune in April 30th.